Hi, my name is Shani and I adore audiobooks, which, no. I would like to think that women are smarter than that. I am so excited. Think, go figure, the Disney Channel movie, but gay. Hello my lovely readers and queers, welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. I am Franny and in today's video I would like to chat about the books that I read during the winter time. So I will be wrapping up the books that I read in the months of January, February and March. And I haven't read that much this year so far. I read a total of 12 books in 3 months, which is not a good average if we do some quick math. And I DNF'd a book 35% in, so I'm not really gonna consider it all that much, but for curiosity's sake, that book was So Not My Type by Dana Hawkins. I DNF'd this back in January and it was quite a disappointment because I had read the previous 2 books by this author, Not in the Plan and In Walked Trouble, which I really liked. They were good sapphic romance books and I had really enjoyed my time listening to the audiobooks of those. However, this one I couldn't really get behind. Perhaps it might be because of where I am in life at the moment, but we have a situation where one of the 2 main characters is hired at a company because her dad is the CEO of the company, and so the dad hires her for a position for which she's not qualified, and that of course does not sit well with the other main character who is working at this company and she really worked her ass off to be where she's at. And the woman that is hired because of her dad, she doesn't even really want to do this job, but she wants to leave her parents' house because she doesn't want to live in a protected environment any longer where she's controlled, where her parents worry about her health and all that stuff. And the privilege of it all was just too much. It was just too much. First of all, you're taking that job from someone else that probably wants it and is qualified to do, and perhaps they've applied and they didn't get it because you're there because of your dad. Secondly, you want to be independent from your parents and move out of your parents' house, yet you're accepting a job at your dad's company where you are there because of your dad. So that doesn't really strike me as being, independent. And on top of it all, she was also annoyed by the fact that the other character, I don't remember the names, the other woman didn't like her because of how she got her job. Which, it is quite understandable, if we want to be honest. And as a reader, I was supposed to somehow buy into the fact that these 2 women could fall in love. How? I know that being realistic is not a romance book's main worry. You don't read romance because you want a realistic story. However, as a reader, I need to be able to believe that it would at least be possible in another universe, in another dimension, in another reality. I have to believe that there's a slight chance that this story could be true. And I'm sorry, it cannot. It just cannot happen. And there was also the fact that 35% in, no romance had happened. In both point of views, we had these 2 women being very annoyed by each other for different reasons, but starting to think, oh, her lips, her eyes, her curves, like what? You have these 2 women that cannot stand one another, and somehow all of a sudden they're starting to notice the lips and the eyes and the curves. No. I would like to think that women are smarter than that. So I just couldn't get into the story. Anyways, that was my DNF. That was a bit of a rant that I had to do on this DNF, and now we can move forward with the rest of the books that I read during the winter time. And at the end of this video, I would like to just make some considerations about how my reading year has been going so far and what I would like to do and hopefully change in the upcoming months. And Yeah. So the first book that I finished in January and that I had started at the very end of last year is The Murder Christmas Game by Alexandra Benedict, and I listened to the audiobook of this one that was narrated by Laura Costello. I really loved her narration, so if you want to read this book, please consider listening to the audiobook. I don't want to say too much about this because it's almost Easter and nobody wants to hear about a Christmas book, but I will just say that we have a snowed-in situation. The main character in this one goes to her aunt's house because her aunt has just died, and in her will she stated that she wanted to have a Christmas where all the relatives still alive that are part of this family would gather at her house to spend the Christmas time together and, find some clues. There's, a whole mystery game going on. And at the end of this game, whoever finds the last piece, the last clue, will inherit the house. And so our main character, Lily Armitage, she goes to her aunt's house to participate in this thing. But as the game goes on, people in her family start dying and they cannot leave because they get snowed in by this huge, crazy storm. And so, things happen and there's a mystery to resolve, an assassin to find, and all these things. And I really loved it. It was really entertaining. I was there for the drama. I really loved the characters. There's a gay couple in as well that I was really scared for because I did not want my gays to die. And this might be the only book where there has been a comparison made to Knives Out, the movie, and I could actually see it. I understand why that reference was made and I approve. I think it stands. I think it was well done and I really recommend it. I give it 5 stars. And Alexandra Benedict has written many Christmas books, murder mystery Christmas books, so I think from now on it might become a tradition of mine to listen to one each Christmas until I ran out. After that, I listened to For Such a Time as This by Shani Akilah. Gorgeous cover. This is a collection of short stories that are all intertwined. Each story is told from the perspective of a different character, but all these characters somehow know each other or know someone that knows them. And all these characters are Black people living in the UK, and they're dealing with dramas in their relationships, with family complicated situations, with their relationship with their parents and grandparents and their countries of familial origin, with racism, with COVID aftermath. So there's all that going on. I didn't absolutely love it. I think that with short story collections, it's kind of a hit or miss with some stories. You don't love all of them. There were some stories that didn't really quite do it for me, and there was one thing that I found really confusing, which was the fact that most times I wasn't even really being introduced to the characters properly in each short story. Like, I would find out more about the character as the story went on. However, most times I wouldn't even know the character's name, and then I would figure out that character's name because they would pop up in another story from another character's perspective, which I found quite confusing because then it was hard to keep track of who was who and how they knew each other and all that. And the connection that there was between all these characters and all these stories was one of the things that I was most fascinated with. So I would have loved if the relations between the characters had been a bit more clear, had been made out to be a bit more clear, but I did think that it was a very strong collection. I thought that the writing style was very experimental and very interesting, well crafted, and my favorite short stories were The Commute. The intro was just fantastic. Like, the intro had me crying, and that was like 5 minutes long in audiobook form, so that was that was a tough thing to accomplish. Good Goodbye, I really liked, For Such a Time as This, which gives the name to the collection. Blood and Ink was fantastic. And then Back to the Office, I think, and the outro, The Gathering. Those were my favorite. And I would recommend this collection. It just had a few misses, but as a whole, I would recommend it. And I would recommend the audiobook. It's narrated by a bunch of different people. Savannah Ayo-de-Greaves, there's David Alade, Chloe Sommer, and Diana Yekini. And I think they all did a fantastic job. I really loved the audiobook. Then I read Not for the Faint of Heart by Lex Croucher. This is a YA queer retelling of Robin Hood. We follow the granddaughter of Robin Hood. That's the retelling aspect of the situation, and she's part of the Merry Gentlemen, but it's a very, I want to say, almost militarized version of the Merry Gentlemen. They became more organized and more structured, more like soldiers after Robin Hood passed the torch to whoever it is that had it in this book. So you have to understand, right? With Lex Croucher's YA stories, they're just so delectable. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, you know? You just want to keep going and reading, and you cannot stop. Okay, they're addicting like that, and this was no exception. It was exactly like that. It was fun to read. It was very queer. I loved the relationships and the banter between, you know, the youngsters of the crew that are trying to, you know, be the revolution, and they're trying to take the Merry Gentlemen back to how they were in the beginning. So when they were really trying to help people, when they were there for the poor. So in this retelling, we follow Robin Hood's granddaughter, Mariel, and she was brought up, you know, in a very strict way. She is tough, there is no space for emotions. And then we have Clem, who is a very kind and soft-hearted teenage healer who is kidnapped by the Merry Gentlemen because they had to use her in a hostage exchange situation. The Merry Gentlemen's crew that kidnapped her is attacked by the sheriff's men, and since Clem is a healer and she's so just like a bun, you know, she's just like that type of person that is so sweet that no matter what you do to her, she's gonna help you anyway. So she helps them even though she's still technically kidnapped, and you know, out of the goodness of her heart, she just keeps on helping them. When Mariel's dad, who is the current leader of the Merry Gentlemen, is, you know, in turn kidnapped by the sheriff of Nottingham's men. So that's basically what happens here. Clem was just delightful. She was so sweet, so good, naive to a fault, like naive to the point of, girl, where's your self-preservation instinct? Because it's not here, it's nowhere to be found. But she was just the sweetest bun, and I loved her and Mariel. They were just so stupid and cute together. Oh my goodness. And this is just what Lex Croucher does, you know? They are incredible at doing just that. It making you giggly and stupid and care for all these characters and just, you know, enjoy whatever it is that they wrote. I do have a favorite book by Lex Croucher for now. I do think that Gwen and Art Are Not in Love was the best, was much better than this, and that's mainly for 2-3 reasons, I want to say. First reason is purely personal taste. Like, I love everything that is somehow related to the Arthurian legend. That's just me, so nothing could be done there. Reason number 2 is that When an Art Are Not in Love was just perfect. There was nothing I would have changed. There was nothing wrong with it. It was perfect as it was. And reason number 3 is that I was a bit annoyed at something that was said in this one, in Not for the Faint of Heart. At some point, someone says to someone else something along the lines of, don't be a Nazi, or we are going to get those Nazis. Something like that. Nazi. That was the word. It was fascist. It was fascist. It was not Nazi. Which really pulled me out of the story so fast that I was pissed, because I do understand what you're trying to say. However, that word has a very specific historical context of reference. It is a political dictatorship that happened in Italy between the 1920s and the 1940s, and finding it in a queer retelling of a story that supposedly took place in the 13th century, 14th century, it just rubbed me off the wrong way because it refers to something very specific. It is not like saying don't be racist or don't discriminate or don't be a homophobe. Like, it has a very specific historical context. It has a very specific meaning within that historical context. And I just do not understand why in the world it was in this book and why no editor, no beta reader or whomever pointed that out, because that should not have been there. And it really pulled me out of the story. I didn't like it. So for that reason, for all the reasons that I listed, When an Art Are Not in Love is definitely my favorite, but this one was still good. I gave it 4.5 stars, so it was still good. This is just a small thing that I had to say because I am picky as fuck and I have to complain about things. That's my character flaw, so there it is. After that, I read Whoa, a housecut story of despair by Lucy Knisley. I love Lucy Knisley to pieces. She writes and draws memoirs in the form of graphic novels. That's what she does. And she is great at it. She has accompanied me throughout many important steps in my life, and I was always able to find something in her graphic novels that spoke to me, that felt like it was speaking to me personally, and I absolutely love her to pieces. And this graphic memoir is dedicated to her cat. It was just a collection of vignettes of comic strips that had her cat as protagonist, and I loved it. And it was cute, it was adorable, it was full of emotions. You could see all the love that she had for this cat. That's how great she is. She made me care about a cat that has passed away, that is no longer with us, that I've never met, that I've never even seen. But I love it, and that's how great she is. If you love animals, if you have a cat, if you've had a cat, if you like humorous comic strips, read this one. You will not regret it. Then I listened to another audiobook that I really, really loved. It's A Love Skate Relationship by Carli J. Corson. Now, again, think Go Figure, the Disney Channel movie, but gay. And I loved it so much, so much. It's literally all I've ever wanted in a book form. I love Go Figure. It is perhaps my favorite movie ever made by Disney Channel. I have lost count of how many times I've rewatched more than High School Musical, more than the Cheetah Girls. There was another movie that I really, really liked, the one that was something like Life in the Suburbs or something, the one with Brenda Song and Danielle Panabaker or something like that. I will put a picture on the screen. You know the movie that I'm talking about, okay? If you are in your late 20s, early 30s, you were alive during the best Disney Channel era. So you know the movie that I'm talking about. I mean, it might be one of my favorites because I had a crush on Brenda Song, but still, that's nor here nor there. In this book, we follow our main character, Charlie, who is an hockey player, and at the end of a match against their arch nemesis, she punches a guy from the other team because he was being very sexist, and he totally deserved that punch. Like, you do not talk to to a girl like that. Anyway, she punches this guy. A fight ensues at the sports center where this match happened. She is expelled from her private high school and she has to attend the high school where the team that she played against is from. Since for the season she cannot play hockey, she basically gets roped in to helping an ice skater from the high school to train and get prepared for a very important national competition, because, you know, since she's been playing hockey for years, she is strong enough to play the male part in, you know, the choreography that they're preparing for the national championship or whatever it is. And so you have these two teenage girls skating together, training together. She falls in love with ice skating. It was so good. It was such a cute YA sapphic contemporary romance, and it was literally, go figure, but gay. I wholeheartedly recommend it to whoever wants to read a YA sapphic romance, to whoever watched and loved Go Figure, to whoever wants to relive the Disney Channel glory days, but gay. That's literally the stuff of dreams, you know? Wait, I don't know if I've said it. I listened to the audiobook of this one, and the audiobook was narrated by Gail Shalan, and she was incredible. She is a new audiobook narrator on my radar. I will check out other things that she's narrated because she was incredible. After that, it was the time of Know Your Newlyweds by Hilary Nussbaum. Now, I have to say something here, okay? Hi, my name is Franny, and I adore audiobooks. Audiobooks are a way of life. Audiobooks are my way of life, and I literally could not stay without listening to audiobooks, okay? They are that important to me. That being taken into account, Know Your Newlyweds is the type of audiobook that makes you fall in love with audiobooks, that makes you realize and makes you appreciate so much the power of sounds, of background noises, of acting, with everything that has to do with hearing. First of all, what is this book about? This book is about a man and a woman. They match on a dating app while the woman was waiting at an airport. So she flies away, but they keep on talking because, you know, they really vibe and they like talking to each other and all that, even though they know they live in different countries. So dating is not really an option. And one thing that they connected on when they matched was their love for an old show called Know Your Newlyweds, where couples of newlyweds would go and compete to see who best knew their partners. So the couple who knew each other better won the prize or whatever was to be won at the show. And coincidentally, a short time after they matched, our main character, the woman, finds out that a new season of Newlyweds is about to be produced, and they are looking for people to participate in the show, in this revival. And so since they both love it, even though they are not married and they've never met in person, they decide to apply as a newlywed couple, and they get selected and they go on the show, which is slightly different from the past because now it is not a one night type of thing, but there's like 5-6 episodes or something like that with the same couples. And so they kind of have to fake for longer than they thought they would have, because it is not a one-time thing, but they have to, you know, stay in the same place for a longer period of time, and they will be tested and challenged more times instead of just once, and they get to spend more time together and perhaps fall in love for real. And this is a very short audiobook. It is like 4 hours long, but the reason why I loved so much, first of all, the couple itself, right? They were adorable, they were dorks, they were so cute, and I loved them to pieces. You just wanted to squeeze them from how adorable they were. But the reason why I loved these audiobooks so much, the reason why it just made me fall in love with audiobooks all over again, is because this is a story to be listened. This is not a story to be read. I think there's a paperback version of this, but I don't know why you would want to read the paperback. This audiobook was done so well because it was exactly like watching a rom-com while blindfolded. What you're hearing, the noise in the background, the sound effects, the acting, like everything that you're hearing is so precise and so meticulously done and so perfect that you do not need to be watching. Like, to picture everything, to fully understand what is happening all around you, like to feel like what you're listening to is happening all around you. It was like being completely immersed in a story, 360 degrees. And it left me speechless. It really did. I was so happy and so impressed. And I literally could not believe what my ears were listening to. This is the type of story, you know, that really makes you fall in love with audiobooks. And of course, the majority of audiobooks that I listen to are not like this. You know, it's text from the books read out loud and acted by audiobook narrators that are incredible at what they do, and I really appreciate them for their work. But in this case specifically, you literally have the acting and the, you know, sound effects and the background noise and all that. And that's a type of audiobook that I also love and adore. It is a different type of story, but it really makes you see and realize how incredible audiobooks can be and how powerful they can be and how incredible it is to listen to a story and consume, quote unquote, consume a story while listening, if that makes sense. And since I loved this audiobook so much, I have to give credit where credit is due. There is a full cast of audiobook narrators, so I will not tell you all their names because I don't even know all their names, unfortunately, but the two main voices of the two main characters, the love interests, were Mary Mauser and Tyler Posey. And they are actors professionally. So that just goes to show that this audiobook was literally like watching a movie, blindfolded. Like, they chose actors to perform. So, you know, I think that speaks volumes for how good this audiobook was. After that incredible performance and journey, I listened to The Anthropologists by Aysegul Savas, and this was narrated by Catherine Aboya. She did an incredible job. I really loved her. However, I have to say that I was a bit disappointed by this book. It was one of my anticipated releases of 2025 because I had read and really enjoyed the author's previous novel, White on White, and so I was curious to see what she was going to do next. And I was a bit disappointed because I think that The Anthropologist was, in a way, very similar to White on White in the sense that it felt very ethereal. Nothing is quite specified. We have these two characters, a couple, Asia and Manu, who live in a town that they're trying to, you know, make their home, but we never find out what town this is, in what country or continent they are. We just know that they are immigrants and they are trying to create their home and their family away from home. I do understand why that was done. I do understand why we were not given any details and why everything was kept vague. I get that the intention was to talk about the immigrant experience in the most universal way possible. However, perhaps because of how everything was kept super vague, I was never fully capable to connect with the characters. And that has nothing to do with the fact that they were immigrants and I'm not an immigrant at the moment. It felt like I couldn't really get to know them that well. And I do not think that that was really intentional. It was like they were in a building and I was in another building and I was looking at them through our respective windows, but I was never let into their house, into their home, if that makes sense. As a reader, I felt kept away. There was a Goodreads review that perfectly described and captured the feel of this book, I feel like. And this person said that it was kind of like watching one of those inspirational aesthetic productivity vlogs where you watch them and you enjoy the act of watching it because it is beautiful to see and you appreciate how aesthetic and beautiful it is. But then you think you're gonna take something away from it that you can apply in your life. And when you go back to your life and when you stop watching that video, nothing has changed. And you just keep on doing things the way you were doing things and you literally forget about that video. This was it. I listened to it. There were some quotes that were really beautiful and that I appreciated in the moment, but they didn't really leave anything. There was not an aftermath glow, an aftermath effect on me or my life or the way I think about things. Like nothing really stayed. That was really a shame, I feel like, especially for a book that is talking about the immigrant experience and building your own life and creating your own family away from your home or away from your family of origin. I think it could have been much more impactful and it didn't quite deliver on that. And that's where I was left a bit disappointed from this experience. So I think I give it like 3 or 3.5 stars, but I was expecting a little bit more from it. The last 5 books that I read in the winter months are part of a series, and I am talking about the Pentecost and Parker series by Stephen Spotswood, which it is a very beloved series by yours truly. Now, let me tell you what happened, okay? What happened was that the 5th book, right, in the series, Dead in the Frame, came out in February this year. I was on hold on the Libby app for the audiobook, so I was waiting for it to be my turn so that I could finally listen to it. However, my turn was not coming. I had to wait a little bit longer after the release date, and I was at a point where I was done with the audiobook that I was listening to and I had to pick another one. And that was when my life just started to become so stressful, and so I needed a good story, a story that would entertain me, but at the same time that would be, comfortable and cozy for me, and that would just bring me mental peace and the calm that I needed, and so I was like, you know what? This crazy idea struck me right there and then. I can go back to the beginning, to the origin story of the series that I love so much and that I started back in 2022, and now it's been years and I don't really remember all the details, all the secondary characters, how everything started back in the first book, and that's how it happened. I picked up the first book in this series, Fortune Favors the Dead, and the journey took off from there. It was exactly what I needed. I just had so much fun. I had such a good time. I do not want to talk about these books right now because I do not have the time or the mental energy and capacity to do so right now, but I do want, and that is a promise, okay? A promise that I plan on keeping because I already know when to do it and all of that. It's already, planned in my mind, you know? So that's how I know that it's gonna happen. I want to make a whole dedicated video to this series in which I can go into each book individually and tell you the synopsis, what I liked about it, why I love this series so much as a whole, and why I do not understand how in the world is it so underrated, and just gush about it and rant about it basically for a whole video. So that's gonna happen, and that's why I'm not really gonna go into it right now. I'm just gonna say that I started with the first book, Fortune Favors the Dead, which was a great beginning to this queer murder mystery series set in New York in the 1940s after the Second World War. Then I read the second book, Murder Under Her Skin, which was and still is my least favorite in the series as a whole. However, I have to say that reading it the second time around, I reevaluated it a lot. I understand why it was important to tell the story, even though personally I'm not really interested in the circus setting. It was an important part of the main character's background, so it was a piece that, you know, we needed to be told, and so I appreciated it so much more the second time around. Then the third book, Secrets Typed in Blood, which again was absolutely incredible. Then the fourth one, Murder Crossed Her Mind, and honestly, it's a tie between the first, the third, and fourth books. Like, I do not know, I cannot say which one is my favorite. I love them all to pieces. They are absolutely incredible. I don't know what else to say. And last but not least, it was finally the time to read the fifth book in the series, Dead in the Frame. All I am going to say about this one, since it's the new one that I read, so I have to say something about it. All I'm going to say is that I was amazed at what the author pulled off with this book. It was not an easy feat, let me tell you. I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't read the synopsis before going into the book. All I knew was how the fourth book ended, which ended on a huge cliffhanger. Let me tell you, I do not know how I waited for a whole year for the fifth book, but I did, which was a feat by itself. Anyways, that's all I knew, how the fourth one ended, and so I knew that crazy big things were gonna happen in the fifth one. But then I started the fifth one and I realized how the story was going to play out and what was going to be unraveled throughout the book. And I was so scared because I was not sure that it could be pulled off. And then the author did. And it was incredible. And I loved it so much. Particularly the ending it left me speechless. I cannot wait for the sixth book to come out. I am so excited. I am at the edge of my seat. And since this one, Dead in the Frame, just came out, I know that I'm going to have to wait for at least a year before I even see the sixth book. I can do it. I have waited before. I can wait again as long as these books keep being so incredible. It is totally worth the wait. But more about this whole series in the video dedicated to it that I will be making, I promise you. And this was it. These are all the books that I read during the winter months, so January, February, and March of 2025. I don't know if you have noticed, perhaps you have, but out of the 12 books that I did read, 10 of them were audiobooks, which you know, it says a lot about me as a reader. It says a lot about me and my relationship with audiobooks. And I think it also says a lot about how perhaps stressed I've been. My mind and heart just needed this, you know, they needed to listen to stories. I couldn't focus on words on a page, well, digital page, because I mostly read ebooks, you know, when I am reading words with my eyeballs. And so I feel like, you know, I am just so grateful and thankful that audiobooks exist and that they are a part of my life, because I wouldn't be able to read as much as I do. I wouldn't have been able to read as much as I have without audiobooks. And that's what I needed. And I am so happy and grateful that that option was there, that it was available, and that I had the chance to do that. However, moving forward, I would like things to change a little bit throughout the year. I don't want things to change drastically because we all know, I think you know, I hope you know, that audiobooks are a huge part of my life, and so they're still gonna be there. And I am happy that for the past few months I was not stressing about making videos and having to put out content, so that I was able to grant myself the possibility of rereading books that I had already read, and that was incredible. Again, it's what I needed, and I'm very happy that I was able to do that. But at the same time, there are so many books out there that I want to read, that are on my TBR, and that I really want to get to. And so many incredible, I swear, 2025, I don't know what's happening, but so many great queer books are coming out in 2025 that I haven't gotten around to, and I really want to do that. So in the next few months, I want to try to keep that in mind, find some peace to be able to read more with my eyeballs as well, so that I can get around to these other books that are coming out and that I really want to get to. Hopefully, what you can expect from me in the next few months is, first of all, more videos. That's the hope. But also I would like to get around to some new releases that have come out, some queer books that I haven't read before, and so they're not rereads for me, some fantasy series that have been on my to be read pile for a long time. And I would also love to go back to reading more graphic novels, because I have many, particularly arcs from Nikali that I requested and I was approved for, and that I really want to get to, but I haven't yet. So that's something that hopefully I will be able to do in the next few months, and we shall see in my next reading update if my intentions were met with actions and concrete plans. Please let me know how your reading year has been going so far, and if you have read any of the books that I've talked about, and also if you can and if you want to, I would love to know if you listen to audiobooks, and if you do, I would love if you shared what your relationship with audiobooks is. I actually want to make a video about this as well, because as you can see, I am very, very passionate about audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I love dedicating time to listening to audiobooks and finding new audiobook narrators that I love. And it is a huge part of my reading, but also, of my life and how I spend my time. And I want to honor that. I want to talk about audiobooks and my experience, what works for me, offer some advice if you would like that, if you want to start with audiobooks and you don't really know which way to go and what to do and all that. Share what my favorite audiobook narrators are and all that. I would love to make a long ass video about audiobooks and my relationship with audiobooks and all that. So please let me know if that's something that you might be interested in, even though I might do it anyway because I really want to. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video, for staying tuned, for still being here despite my hiatus and my inconsistency, which is another character flaw of mine, unfortunately. And thank you. I really appreciate it. And I will see you very soon with another video, hopefully. But until then, have a good one. Take care and keep reading queer books. Warm hugs. Bye.